Great. So welcome again, folks. This is a Southern Vermont, New Vermonter Provider Networks meeting. Generally a good opportunity for everyone and anyone involved in supporting our New Vermonters and touching base and learning what's new, what's exciting, what it is to be worked on or discussed further. We do have a light agenda today as it's summer, and I know there's both a lot going on, and I think I know the schools are still waiting, you know, for more students, and you know, I understand that the pace of resettlement has slowed a little bit this summer, so I am hoping this is just a good opportunity for folks to connect and to provide updates relevant to this group, and also to help start forming our agendas come fall, when we're going to start doing more topic specific meetings as well. And so I would love to offer the opportunity for someone from ECDC's Brattleboro office, or Joe, if you want to just say a quick update, and then if it's okay, Megan or Jack, I may throw you folks under the bus for an update also. But Megan, it's great to see you again.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Mark, can you do update? And Megan, you can do update too.
Sure. Well, good morning, everyone. Yeah, as Alex was saying, we are the pace of resettlement has slowed down a bit. There's a very good reason for that, and I think it will come as no surprise to anyone that housing is still a critical issue for us. We use SIT World Learning Campus for transitional housing. That does change over the summer as they run summer youth programs and other academic programming up on campus. They actually utilize their dorms for a brief period over the summer, which cuts our housing capacity for transitional housing in half. We are at capacity. We're at full capacity at the moment. We are actively still working to try to find permanent housing for those clients off campus. But again, with the housing being what it is, that's proving to be a challenge. We're looking at other ways to address some of this. For example, there's a property management company over in Bennington that we are in negotiations with to sign an MOU to have dedicated housing that's specifically for our clients on that side. We would love to try to figure out a way to do something similar here in Brattleboro, but at this moment, that's where we're at. Because of that, what we've asked our headquarters to do through PRM is to limit the number of assurances that we receive over the next 2 months. And the idea, well, at this point, really, we've asked that. So we've tried to slow it down for June and July with the idea that in August, we can start taking assurances again, so that when the campus does open up again in the third week of August, we're in a situation where we could start welcoming more people here to Southern Vermont and utilize that transitional housing as a first step. So again, housing is very much a bottleneck at this point in time for us. As far as ECDC as an organization, we continue to add staff. We've added a couple new people just in the past few weeks. The expectation is we would be adding a few more. I'll let Megan talk about the staff expansion on the Bennington side as well. But we have 2 open positions that we expect to be filled within the next week or so here in Brattleboro. I think I'll just stop there and let Megan kind of do an update for Bennington.
Okay. Are there questions for Mark regarding Brattleboro? Okay. So over here in Bennington, thank you, Jack, for holding the fort while I was out. Now we are an office of 2 full-time and an additional 1 part-time person, we are seeking two additional full-time positions. One is a case manager, the other is an employment and housing navigator. So if you have folks in Bennington looking for work, that would be great. We are also looking for an AmeriCorps Vista for Bennington's office. So our resettlement efforts here in Bennington had previously been run out of Brattleboro, and for the I don't know if you want to call it a new era, the new situation in which the resettlement effort is coming directly to the Bennington office with the support of the Brattleboro office is beginning in earnest now. We have clients who are being added to our pipeline, and we have our first arrival for July 6th. So we will slowly be receiving new clients here in Bennington. Housing is also a challenge here. Mark mentioned an MOU that's in the works over here in Bennington, but that's not a done deal. And I want to make it clear that Jack and I are working really hard to build up our community resources and our networks, and starting to think about some creative solutions. One of the things that has come up in a community meeting was this idea of revamping, I believe it was previously existing community program where people who, I think primarily elders who were looking for someone else to come and live in their home to help them with upkeep and or companionship while offering that person some affordable housing. There used to be a program like this in Bennington or in the Bennington area that we are interested in potentially helping to get restarted. Could be a housing solution for some of our clients, could be a housing solution for many people in the Bennington area. If there are folks, if there's a network or a program in place by which folks could open up their homes to folks who need housing and potentially have a mutual benefit for each other. So if anybody has thoughts on that kind of co-housing program with a lease type agreement in place, or know of other programs like that that we could connect with, that would be fantastic. Our client base is also going to be diversifying. So primarily we have, or exclusively, we have Dari speakers from Afghanistan here in Bennington. We are starting to see some Pashto speakers from Afghanistan come through our database, and also some Congolese Kinyarwanda speakers. So we are anticipating those arrivals to continue to diversify, and that we are not just going to be seeing one specific linguistic background or nationality here in Bennington. Questions for me? Or anybody else heard of a co-housing program whereby people could connect? Tracy.
Hello. Yeah, you know, I think Yvonne is on, but at Grace Initiatives in Manchester, they've been welcoming some folks, and they've had some success with people getting hired by a hotel or motel and then being offered housing long-term as part of that, because the hotels and motels are having trouble hiring people. So I don't know if Yvonne's on and wanted to share that, but that's one approach that could also be interesting.
Hi.
Yvonne, I've been wanting to connect with you also, so.
All right. I just don't want to have the video. I don't want anyone to see what I look like. Yeah, so that's, can you hear me? Okay. So
Yes.
Yep, we can hear you. Yep.
yeah, that we started that actually even with our small Afghan placement. And that is like the path, because as everybody knows, it's very difficult to find like apartments, you know, freestanding apartment that is available to rent that somebody could afford, and not just a refugee or anybody. So we started to develop relationships with hotels, and we also have people who are allowing the refugees to stay at their house and paying a small rent. So we have a combination of renting and living at a hotel. But it has to be a hotel that actually meets like the criteria for our housing. They can't just be thrown in a room without proper facilities and a certain standard. But so far, that's also been fine. So thank you.
Yvonne, can I just clarify a little bit more? So what I was talking about here was the idea of that somebody is working at the hotel as an employee, and part of the benefit they're getting is longer term housing. Would you be able to speak to that just a little bit, that specific situation?
Yeah, I thought I was speaking to that. Yeah, so we usually combine the work possibility with accommodation. And if we can't find accommodation, we usually don't take the work because there's almost no reason unless there is housing available. It's very difficult. And because our program is a matching grant, it's 8 months. We have to have the housing lined up. So that's probably similar to a situation other people are facing, in that we can resettle more, but it's limited to availability of a job and housing. And unless we know that we can offer that, we probably will not have a refugee come to Vermont, or at least our area, and just have them sit someplace and us pay for our hotel bill.
And then on the hotel motel deal, has it been, again, with the idea of the work tied to the housing, right? Has it been mostly singles that have done that? Or have you had a family that has moved into a hotel under that arrangement?
No, we did want to have a family, and we do have a family, but the hotels say no because they're afraid of the liability if there's a child. If it's a married couple, that's a different story. But if they
Okay.
have a child, no, it's not possible.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I do just want to quickly address that over here in Bennington, we have been informed that there's a rumor going around that people are being kicked out of hotels and motels in order to make room for refugees. And that is not the route that we are trying to go. And we're also trying to not create a sense of or an actual competition. This is not a competition for housing. We're looking to help build housing resources for all Vermonters, including our clients. So the more creative solutions available, the better. And thank you, Yvonne, for sharing. I'd love to connect with you further on this.
Great, thank you. And Amy, I see you've had your hand raised.
Yeah, thanks. Megan, I just wondered if you could either email out or put something in the chat for the positions you're looking for, the Vista and the other two, because I'd love to forward those on to our case managers in case reach up folks are
that'd be great
for that kind of work.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Great. And then Yvonne, I see your hand is raised if you have another comment.
Yeah, I guess two. One is that the rooms that are made available at the hotels are not hotel rooms. So they are not taking a hotel room from anyone. The rooms that they have is that for one place, they actually have a house, and the house has like 5 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms and a big kitchen. So nobody is living in a hotel room. We only had that one incident, and that's because we had a learning curve of accepting somebody before we had a place for them to live. But we won't do that again. But nobody is living in a hotel room. So that rumor is definitely not founded, I don't think. And then the second thing is that I don't know if people are aware of Job Corps. And so it's based in Vermonter, but they also have been talking to some of the refugees that we have here in Manchester. They do, if someone wanted to go to in their program, they also will provide ESL. So that might be something for a follow-up to your resettlement.
Yeah, Job Corps is a fantastic program. I believe it is a residential program. And so it's it's a unique individual who, you know, who it would probably work for. I don't know if someone would be willing to leave their family to go to Vergennes for the duration of a program, but they're good programs. And so if there's, you know, single folks or people who have time off or willing to do that, it is a great opportunity to learn some workplace skills. Very different model than what is offered in Bennington and Windham counties in terms of education and workforce training, but it's certainly a good program. Any other updates? And while we're in the region from Bennington County, anything top of mind from partners? Adam, I see you joined. I don't know if there's anything in particular you want to mention, or we can move on perhaps to a statewide update from Tracy.
I'm all set. Thank you.
Great. All right. Tracy, anything happening statewide of note for folks?
So as you know, we had folks crossing the border at a higher rate than normal early in the year. And we thought then with some policy changes at the southern border that might pick up even more. It doesn't appear to have, but we do still have the occasional folks crossing over from the northern border. I would say broadly, these are asylum seekers, but I don't know for sure in every case. And so that's a little bit out of the range of the refugee world. And most of them are moving through Vermont, but just wanted to let you guys know that the state has established a few small grants with some community organizations to be able to help those folks navigate to the next step. So in some cases, that is helping them find a place for the night, especially folks who don't have any resources. A lot of them do have some money in their pocket when they cross over and they do have a plan, but occasionally they don't. So we might get them a place for the night. I say we, that's the royal we. Community organizations might do that, or even get them a bus ticket to their next destination. Most of them don't plan to stay in Vermont. But if they do plan to stay in Vermont, we try to then refer them to an asylum seeking assistance organization. So that's kind of on the asylum side. Funding wise, it looks like as of July 1, we'll have more funding broadly to support refugee type work, New American type work around employment assistance, but also the asylum seeking network also around, again, folks who want to stay and figuring out ways to help them stay. So more to come on, probably an RFP will go out around that. What we may do is shore up some of the existing programs, but there might be others who might be interested also in developing or trying out some programs around that. And then finally, just a reminder that what we've got now, aside from folks coming in through the refugee networks, there are 3 other ways that people are now entering into kind of the refugee resettlement world. One is through Welcome Corps. I've received a couple of inquiries from organizations that are at the ready in Vermont to put in an application, but according to the feds, no one has put in an application yet from Vermont, but that's Welcome Corps, that private sponsorship organization program, sorry. And then, at Welcome Corps, that means they can arrive anywhere in Vermont, and a local group will support them for 90 days. The commitment is 90 days. The goal is hopefully longer than that, but they can access other programs, for example, at a refugee resettlement agency after the 90 days. The other program is Uniting for Ukraine. I think we're up to 180 applications that have gone in for Vermont. We're not sure how many people are here, but we assume a lot of those applications have been approved and that folks have come. Whether or not they've stayed, it's hard to say. But we have plenty of Ukrainians who are here. Most of them are getting refugee resettlement services, case management services through USCRI because of the location. The fewer are in your region, but there are a handful in your region. So Welcome Corps, Uniting for Ukraine, and then the third program is the Cuban, Haitian, Nicaraguan, Venezuelan parole program. And that's a financial supporter program where somebody, again, can go online, fill out the forms, and then have somebody arrive and support them. And so those 3 programs are ways that people are coming into Vermont that are not going directly to a resettlement agency, and they really could be landing anywhere in Vermont. And some of those folks, for example, are part of what has been happening through GRACE initiatives as well, through the financial supporter program there. So those are 3 programs. And we now have a small resource guide for sponsors on how to take the first steps when people arrive to get them the support that they need. Because in all of those cases, with the exception of the Nicaraguans and Venezuelans, they are eligible to get some of the basic state benefits, reach up if they're eligible, refugee cash assistance if they're eligible, WIC, Medicaid, etc. So that is on the State Refugee Office website, on the Vermont State Refugee Office website, that small resource guide. And we're trying to keep that up to date. And we are going to overhaul the website in general so that it's a little more user-friendly. And I think that is everything. And just, I guess, big picture also, it looks like Vermont for this coming fiscal year, October 1, is at about 475, maybe 500 projected for refugees. So that's the target that collectively ECDC and USCRI has put in together. That doesn't mean they'll all arrive, and it doesn't mean that you know, we can't slow down that spigot if housing you know, is not available. If we get to a point where people are arriving and we keep them in transitional or we're unable to move them to permanent housing, obviously the offices can go back to their headquarters and say you have to hold up. We do have some states right now who are keeping people in hotels very long term. And, you know, folks are safe, they're getting services, but that's not ideal, right, for building community. So we would rather not get to the point where we're heavily using that kind of service for a long period of time. I think that is everything right now, but I'll pause and see if there are any questions.
Any questions? Great. One thing I did want to follow up on is that our own asylum seeker organization is in search of an executive director, and I'm posting a job description in the chat. Kate is moving on to Milk with Dignity, if you folks are familiar with that organization based up north. And, you know, it comes at a unique time because there is this new Cuban Haitian program, and there is a group of folks here in our community who have a lot of experience supporting Cubans and Haitians. And so there is opportunity, I believe, to play another role in the resettlement of folks in our community. That could happen under CASP's leadership if you want to be that leader, I think is the most, the best way I can put it all. But yeah, so again, there with fewer asylum seekers crossing the border, it is in theory replaced by this new program. And so engaging with this new program would be an opportunity for someone who wants to work with asylum seekers. It's a gap to fill.
And I apologize for the dueling job descriptions in there. So the one that Alex is talking about is the one that's second to most recent. And then the one I just posted at the end was the Vista, which is from before. Sorry.
Great. Any other updates from folks?
I did receive a question in the chat.
Oh, yes.
It was sent privately, but that I think actually might be helpful for other folks to hear. And it is regarding the translation ability of Bennington resettlement effort here. So we do not currently, so the folks that we have in our system set to come to Bennington in the near future, probably this summer, by the end of this summer, are all represented to us as being good English speakers. So these are at least one member of each case is bilingual in their native language and English. So that will significantly build, we expect, our translation ability, our ability to have people who we could potentially contract to provide interpretation services in person. If people have questions about interpretation services like telephonic interpretation, we're happy to answer some questions. And if you have other questions about language needs with our existing and soon to be refugee community, please send them my way.
And can I piggyback there and just clarify that for ECDC, if they were to be working with someone who couldn't speak English, it is their responsibility to provide interpretation services during those services. And so they would have access to telephonic interpretation services. That's correct, right, Joe and Megan? Just to be super clear for everyone on the phone, that just because we don't have someone in person who is a qualified translator, there's still other ways and they access those all the time.
Correct.
Yeah, so we have our own in-house interpretation as well as telephone interpretation that we use for services. So clients that we work with, we will provide those interpretation services.
I don't know if I'm like a Luddite, but like I was just so blown away with the ease of using a telephonic interpreter. I had, especially with our Dari speakers, because I have the benefit of working with Amir. I didn't need to use a telephonic interpretation services until recently, but lean into those resources where available. Again, I'm always very impressed because we don't have anyone who speaks Tigrinya that I can work with most immediately. So that's been great.
And just one more reminder that anyone who's receiving contracts from the state that have federal money in them for any essential services are required, if somebody comes into their office, even if it happens very rarely, to actually provide services in that language. That's part of all of those state contracts. And so if you're an organization and you haven't had that opportunity yet, I would suggest you look into what you would do, so that we did have a couple of cases both in your region and across the state where organizations who were providing essential services on behalf of the state were not able to serve the client because of language barriers. And then we were able to highlight, hey, actually, you need to be able to do this. And so look into whether or not you need to establish a contract or whether or not you want to do it on a service by service basis, but that is a requirement. So check your contracts if you are a provider and to make sure you've got something in place.
I actually have a question about this in terms of access. I know it's for some state services, there are like computer portals where you're supposed to sign in for appointments, and they use English language keyboards and an English interface. I'm curious how that interacts with this requirement for translation and for access.
I don't know that I can speak. I'm not one of the frontline folks, but for example, and Jack, you can walk me through this. Do you mean if somebody walked into one of the district offices, for example, and they want to get an appointment, so there's a screen and a keyboard? Would that be an example of what you're referring to right now?
Right. So like you're supposed to come in and sign in for your appointment. And then by signing in at the screen and keyboard, that's what alerts, in theory, the staff that you're there for your appointment.
Okay. Yeah. Then I don't know if we have somebody from a district office on, and I don't know how they normally handle that. Looks like Erin is on, so maybe she might be able to answer that.
Hi. I work at the Department of Labor. I'm a job center specialist there, but we have one of those kiosks. They're pretty new in our office. They've kind of, streamlined the signing in service, but for accessibility, I will absolutely talk to my regional manager about making it maybe translatable, because it is just like a back-end Microsoft form. So I don't imagine that it would be too hard to translate, but I'll ask her to check on that and redevelop it.
We do have some folks who are pre-literate who might not even understand it in their own language. So that might be something for all of us to think about,
Yeah.
And I can bring it back as well to maybe the field services folks and see if there's some other way. If somebody came in and wasn't able to access that, how would they alert someone they're there so that somebody could get telephonic on the phone if necessary?
We have a bell too, with like an arrow pointing to it, which I know is not, the best option, but I'll definitely bring it to the attention to see if we can get something better going.
Megan, And thanks to Caitlin for pointing out why universal design benefits everyone is, I guess, is the euphemism I'll say, but to challenge the assumptions that our foreign-born community members are the only folks struggling with literacy issues, I think is a rightful assumption to challenge. Thank you, Caitlin, for that. Megan.
I also just wanted to point out that here in Bennington, one of the things that we're encountering as sort of the next step challenge is communication between our clients and services by phone. So being able to access interpreter services by phone when they call in is seems to be a challenge. And so it's sort of something for us all to think about how we, as organizations who work with folk, are set up to receive an incoming call and have that person request an interpreter so that we can communicate effectively with them.
Great. This is a fantastic thing that to come up during these meetings. I think we can all chase down in our respective areas. And I think it's exemplary of some things that we're seeing is that, some Vermont policies or procedures or processes may be a little exclusive right now, and it's certainly not from a malicious standpoint, but remembering that we traditionally have not had a huge number of English language learners. And so I see this as a really great opportunity for us to improve, partner with and improve the state's design of their services is the best way. I think that, and remember that individuals' understanding of the policies also differs by region. And, I'll think to the DMV conversation when there was a period of time when people believed that there weren't interpreters and translators allowed during road tests. And that was just a misunderstanding that we knew wasn't true. And through better communication with DMV, we changed that generally. It may not, and so I think that that's something to always think about, in our both from our day-to-day, but from the systems perspective, how can we encourage the state to design access with our folks in mind. Great. Joe, I see your hands raised.
Yeah, my question is a general question, and maybe someone might have experienced this. One of our clients asked me about ID to get on the flight. Is a state issue ID that is non-driver's license allowed to get on a flight to go from one state to another? It's just a general question I'm asking because I promised to get back to this client.
I guess, Joe, the question would be, does this client, they hold their passport though?
No, they don't.
They do not have a passport. Okay. I mean, someone can correct me, but my understanding was that the DMV issues the state issues basically state ID that's not a driver's license. I know that happens in other states, but
I know Vermont issued that, but is that non-driver's license allowed to travel on a flight?
I think as long as it's real ID, I believe it is, but
that is my understanding as well.
So I think that with a currently issued Vermont's ID, that's okay. However, making sure folks are familiar with the fact that we're all supposed to be going to the real ID for flying purposes. I know they keep pushing it back. I know it isn't until 2024 when a real ID is needed, but as of right now, you do not need a driver's license to fly. You do need identification.
Yeah, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Yeah, so if you following up, on some of the things we've been working on, are the childcare class that we've been putting on has been generally successful and logistically challenging and unique. But it's the first time I'm familiar with in the state where we have designed a training around folks who aren't already proficient in English. A lot of the requirements to enroll in workforce development trainings start with English proficiency. And so it's been a chaotic and wonderful mess in finding the structure that works best for students, and everything from partnering with our transportation providers who have been fantastic. And, there's a bus waits an extra 10 minutes at the transportation center to make sure folks can make a transfer safely up to Winston County. We've got different childminders, 3 different ELL teachers, and a teacher from CCV. It's really taken a village, and it hasn't been easy with that all hands. So we'll issue a report on that, on how it looks, because we hope to replicate it with all of the trainings around workforce development that we're hoping to do, and really help formalize the roles that everyone should have, because we didn't really understand any of this prior to starting. And along that comes with waivers, GED waivers for the childcare field, and we're about to start employer engagement, which is really exciting. So having folks enter classrooms and essentially become student teachers, or at least observing teachers in the coming weeks. So again, that's from the workforce development side. It's a pilot, but it's really exemplary of what we think it will take to get these kinds of trainings happening again in the future. Jennifer.
Good morning. I just have a couple logistical questions.
Yeah.
Excuse me. One is, is there childcare provided for ELL classes for adults currently at the Multicultural Center? That was a question a family had. They don't have really young kids, but they were wondering about leaving their kids alone while their older kids attended ELL class as well. They're 16 and above.
Ursula, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Yes, we have. Jill, you want to answer that?
No, that's what I caught on you.
Okay. Yes, we have people here who have children. It's been hard to schedule, not knowing who's going to be here, how many are going to be here. But if we have advance notice, and we can certainly arrange for volunteers.
I'm happy to connect with you later and just check in about a particular family that I'm working to try to have summer opportunities with. I think we've been in correspondence, so I'll do that a little later if that works.
That's great.
Thanks.
Yeah, and I think this is a topic near and dear to me for a number of reasons. One, because we're doing a training for childcare providers, and because finding childcare is the biggest hurdle for this training. And just to remind folks that the childcare accessibility is probably second only to housing in terms of the barriers to economic success for families, and particularly for women entering the workplace. So statistically, we know that after COVID, most men just waltz right back into the workplace. And the number of women excluded from the economy has grown due to childcare needs. So that's the context that we're hoping to solve by training more childcare providers, but also as circles of support, ensuring that our families understand the childcare needs and availability in our region is really important for them in terms of accessing the middle class. And that no one I know can afford like just a full-time nanny for their kid, even if both parents work. Some people can if that person is if not very, well paid, but I think starting to communicate the reality of what both parents working looks and feels like, because I was surprised and others, around summer camp, right? It's really easy to plan when your kids are in school all day, but the summer plans have rightfully disrupted folks' calendars the way it disrupts all parents' calendars. And so in some ways, it's remembering that these families are more similar to us and to the other families we are used to working with in terms of their needs as middle-class Vermonters, as Vermonters who work, and just trying to do that, and trying to solve problems collaboratively with other working families. And so again, like with childcare, it's there aren't more childcare spots that for especially with the cost, but we're working on raising the number of childcare spots by finding more workers. The same way that we don't need more refugee housing, we need more housing for everyone. I think these are the kinds of things that we can all internalize, not just mental health services for new Vermonters, but for all working Vermonters. And the juggle that a new Vermonter family will have is going to be similar to the juggles and struggles that other native Vermonters have had. So not to say we'll fix any of this in the short term, but I think when we're thinking of solutions and the resources available, to really look at it at that systems wide level, because in someone who's been trying to budget for childcare provision for all of the people taking our ELL class, the costs are exorbitant. And it would be a lot better for all of us if there were more childcare seats available for these families. And so that's the big picture I think that we can all be thinking of. Also, that's my childcare rant for the day. Happy to repeat it ad nauseum whenever you'd like.
I have just a quick thought about that.
Yes.
So if there's a flyer that gives a little specific information about the need for childcare as a community service opportunity, that would be something I think the high school could publicize. I don't know how many people are checking this summer, but I think it's worth trying to put that out there, and I could send that to Ricky Davidson, who also is helping students get community service hours. So something to think about for childcare.
I mean, the list of college students who are about to start early childhood education pathways that I have my phone now is certainly a lot more than I did before we started this childcare class, because there are students out there, there are capable young folks who are able to help, but I think part of it is the comfort level of the individual family, and there may be cultural barriers that I am not the best person to communicate. I have childminders. I had a space reserved in the library today for them, but it's up to the parents and the kids and the childminders to determine what everyone's comfortable and safe doing. And I think that's just really important also, to make sure that everyone feels like wherever their kids are is safe. That's, I think, the hard part, or the part that we're all working on. On the other side of things, I've been talking with the Career Center, and perhaps they may host the next iteration of the childcare training, which has a lot of different benefits. Being closer to the school, being closer to that childcare provider that is based in the school, all of those reasons make this an exciting future opportunity. Yes, as Caitlin mentions, money isn't necessarily the problem with childcare. This is a structural thing we can all, think about if it's part of your job, but I'm certainly, trying to get more slots. And again, a goal of our training is that hopefully a family or a home-based center will be opened by new Vermonters themselves. So there's opportunities abound. Yeah.
Sorry, just a clarifying question. So I believe last summer there was childcare at the Multicultural Center for parents who were attending English class. Is that not the case this summer?
That is not the case for this summer in the sense that we cannot hire childminders. We were told that we are not able to hire childminders, so we've been depending on volunteers.
Right. And I remember last summer there was something circulated looking for volunteers. There was like the ability to sign up for a given day or a given week to volunteer. Is that something that is available this summer as well? That sort of sign up?
It can be made available once we have needs. We have that ongoing for transport appointments and related outings and things like that. That's already going on.
Sorry, if there was something available where there was a sign up, I would be happy to put it out to teachers. I think that you probably would get some good response from that. And like Jen was saying, also, you know, possibly high schoolers looking for community service hours. I think that, you know, as always, it's the, like all of us being able to work together and find the way to collaborate on these resources is sometimes helpful.
And just to clarify, maybe Joe, I can get back to you, or is this World Learning's classes that are occurring in the ECDC center that you're referring to when you say there's ELL classes and you need childcare? Can someone clarify that? Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, World Learning classes taking place at MCC. So
okay,
that's part of it. And also along that, there are other activities happening at the MCC.
Okay. And Joe, I'm not sure if the childminder not being able to hire them is a financial issue or if there's some kind of legal issue, but if you want to reach out to me, we can certainly address the financial side of that.
Okay.
I'm not sure if there's some other reason they wouldn't be able to be hired, but.
There's
go ahead.
I can go into detail. I did the research. It's a legal issue. To actually pay someone to childmind, they have to be certified, and we have to certify the center as a child-safe environment. And there's a lot of things to do before we can actually write a contract and pay someone for childminding.
Thank you very much. That's really helpful. Thanks.
Just to check in that childcare is also a challenge over in Bennington for English classes. English is run out of the tutorial center, which is a community partner. So again, you know, this is sort of just pointing to community challenges in general. If somebody is going to a class at tutorial center, whether they're a refugee or not, there's not childcare.
Yeah, I mean, the folks that we're using for our class, you know, where no one is leaving the campus in which classes are held and people aren't getting into anyone's cars. It's really, they're drawing in the back of the room with the kids and walking them around the campus. I think that hire someone who's truly responsible for kids is a legal liability that plays into why it's so difficult to find childcare in general. I would say, please send your volunteers to ECDC. Our training, we budgeted for childminders, so we don't have a need right now. But I think that the MCC, again, it's great when new folks show up to English class and making sure that they have the resources they need to support anyone who's in the MCC, I think is really important because
Can I just make a comment? Azra is not here, but I understand that World Learning English classes are coming to a halt as of Wednesday.
Yeah, so as of this summer, I think Vermont Adult Learning are providing the English language learning classes that, you know, required.
Yeah, we received the email from World Learning, but also I asked to speak to World Learning. What does that mean? So we plan to meet again and talk about that. And if we get more information, I'm sure in the next meeting, World Learning is going to be here. But we also are concerned, what does that mean when it's English language classes will be suspended until August. So we're still discussing that. And if I have more details, I will let you guys know.
Any other?
Alex, can I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
You mentioned that somehow you have figured out how to swing it with childminders. Sounds like maybe helpers in the same facility. But I think Eduardo, and I don't know if you looked into legal issues or who did, but it sounds like Alex's group has figured out a way to be able to provide childcare in a way that doesn't make it as independent. I don't know if you two might be able to talk.
I would say that we are not providing childcare.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that we've structured the class and staffed the class in a way that we don't have concern for the kids' safety.
Okay.
I mean, the majority of the time, the kids are in the same room. It's a very big conference hall, and they are like in the back of the room.
Okay.
I mean, the most well-behaved kids I've encountered in my entire life. But it is, I would say, not childcare, and in fact, that would terrify my employers if we were providing childcare.
Yeah, and so there might be, it sounds like there's maybe different levels of what we call childcare. There, it's sort of like when a mom hires a mother's helper, right, at home, who isn't an actual babysitter. But anyway, I'm just thinking out loud there and just wondering if there might be another way to think about it, depending on what you decide to do. But Joe, I'll connect back up with World Learning and find out what's happening there, because we have a grant with them, and so I'm not aware that there's a cessation of services, so I can also connect back up.
Okay. And on the child minor, what we have been in the past have done, it's like child volunteers. So it's not, we do not pay child minors. We don't say we have child minors, but if family agree, come to class and they want volunteer, they have been working with to just, have their child with a volunteer. That is a little different. It doesn't give us a legal liability on
That's
that.
correct.
But once we start paying them, and as our own child minors, then we have that legal liability.
Thank you. That's super helpful. I appreciate it.
And I think it also ties into the regularity of scheduling. And so if the scheduling of whatever you're offering in your place is consistent, and who's going to be showing up regularly, and you have that kind of communication, and again, like our ELL, our early childhood class has been a mess in terms of scheduling because we're juggling so much. So we've learned the hard way, but consistency and being able to say, here's how many folks will be in a place is very helpful, whether it's for the trainers or for the childminders, because the difference between 5 kids and 9 kids is a lot. It is not a semantic difference, even in a place that is used to providing child minding at a volunteer level. So that's, what I'll just say is that if there are needs, communicate them early and often. And of course, if Silas gets sick and my wife is busy that day, like I leave work. And it is an unfortunate reality. That's something that we may need to communicate that, and a success of the training we've put on is like today there was a childcare shortage, and like some of the dads, right? It's something that we're more comfortable and used to here in Vermont, perhaps, for the father to take off work or to disrupt their schedule to be with their kids. But the fact that this is something that families from cultures where this isn't a normal practice are doing so, I think is a sign of success. It's like, we're only as successful as the rest of Vermonters are. And so I think that is an appropriate, if not ideal, learning that folks, it's the juggle, that we're all familiar with, regardless of our background, is something that we can help support folks understanding as well. I saw Jen and then Megan.
I think this is my last question, but I'm interested to know if Vermont Adult Learning will continue to provide ELL class to adults over the summer if World Learning is not. And I think related to childcare is just allowing parents to be able to attend more to class knowing that their kids are safe. So, I mean, someone in the back, coloring, allows parents to be freed up a bit to be able to focus. So, doesn't have to be a certified.
When the kids get widgy, you take them down the elevator and back up again, so moms can keep learning. It is really, what it is. I do believe. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Sorry, Alex. Jen, I just want to add that World Learning and Vermont Adult Learning, Jackie from there, myself, are meeting next week, and we're trying to discuss some of these issues. Who might be able to provide that, or what does it mean when World Learning says it's suspending services? So I will have more information after we all meet, and how we're going to address this issue.
Yep. My understanding from the last I heard from Vermont Adult Learning is they will continue their classes as they have planned right now. I don't know if they will grow the number of classes in World Learning's absence or not, but I think last I heard they haven't changed their schedule, or they haven't changed their planned offerings. Who knows what the schedule will look like. Megan.
Just to mention that in the case management services that we provide to our clients, we do have frequent conversations with them around the hustle, if you will, that working Vermonters do have to have, and how they can also make it work, as it will, by doing a similar hustle. So things like dad's taking off of work, or what it is that you need to do to make sure that your family is financially stable and able to meet your children's needs as well.
Great. Any last questions? All right, well, thanks so much, everyone, for your time today. As always, if there are topics or pressing issues that you want to spend more substantive time on, send those to me. I can get speakers, I can get content experts. You're probably the content expert, so if there's something that you just want everyone to understand better that you do, that's great too. So just let myself or Jack know, who's been helping send out emails, and we'll see you in a month. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.